Yeah, I'm the female monster. You know that? Everybody, let's get crazy right now.
Hi. So I've been battling a cold for 2 weeks. I didn't want to record it for all posterity, but I gotta get this post up before the Oscars, so it was time to film, and so now here we are. 2015 was the best year for film since 2005, which was the best year for film since 1999, which was the best year for film since ever. It's the first time in years that I felt Hollywood was moving in the right direction. I felt like there were a lot of films for millennials. I felt like there were a lot of films for me. Without further ado, here are my picks for the top 10 best films of 2015 in unranked alphabetical order. So as you can see, I had to make some heartbreaking exclusions this year, owing to the fact that it got so competitive. I had to leave out 4- and 5-star standouts like Bridge of Spies, Sicario, The Revenant, Good Kill, Macbeth, Everest, Inside Out, Creep, Spy, Goodnight Mommy, Burnt, The Big Short, The Martian, Grandma, Carol, 45 Years, The Overnight, The Visit, Shyamalan, where have you been, man? I haven't seen you since like 2001. Any one of these could have made it into a top 11 countdown, but in the end there can only be 10. Alright, enough overture. We got a lot to get to this year, so we're just gonna go straight to the list. Number 10, Avengers Age of Ultron.
Stark, you worry about bringing the city back down safely.
The rest of us have one job: tear these things apart. You get hurt, hurt them back. You get killed, walk it off.
I know a lot of people felt pretty underwhelmed by this one, and not to damn it with faint praise right off the bat, but I will be the first to admit that Ultron's motivations did feel a little uninspired, and the script is unavoidably overburdened with the task of cramming 11 characters into one single cohesive narrative. But I think this film has an understated brilliance that I will fight you to defend. You can put that on the back in quotes if you want. In most superhero movies, the final showdown is usually just a struggle between two different sets of superpowers, which results in little more than an effects reel, much less drama, much less catharsis.
I got nothing.
Whereas the final showdown in Age of Ultron is a battle of competing ideologies.
Humans are odd, but there is grace in their failings. I think you missed that.
This is supposed to be just another big-budget blockbuster action movie, and yet the finale made me feel good about the fact that, like, I'm gonna die one day.
I'm not leaving this rock with one civilian on it.
I didn't say we should leave. There's worse ways to go.
Sure, Age of Ultron's got plenty of the flashy bits too, but I feel like Joss Whedon does a better job of justifying this kind of spectacle in his films than any other writer-director in the MCU, and is one of the only writers who treats superpowers like a burden rather than a boon, so his films aren't just middle school power fantasies.
Avengers, time to work for a living.
Needless to say, I'm very sad to see Joss Whedon leave the MCU. Here's to hoping Civil War can carry the torch, because Ant-Man sure didn't. Number 9, Room.
When I was a little older, when I was 17, I was walking home from
Where
school.
was I?
You were still up in heaven. But there was a guy, he pretended that his dog was
What
sick.
guy?
Old Nick. We call him Old Nick. I don't know what his real name is. But he pretended his dog was sick.
What's the dog's name?
Jack, there wasn't a dog.
I don't have any formal complaints about this film. That's how good this year was. We're only at number 9 and I have nothing negative to say. Room is a movie about a woman who's been forced to live in a tool shed by her demented kidnapper for 7 years. The movie is told largely through the eyes of her 5-year-old son, who was born in the tool shed 2 years into her captivity, who subsequently knows nothing about the outside world except for what he sees on TV.
Ryan?
I don't want to give too much away, but even the trailer lets you know that about halfway through the film, the woman and the boy do manage to escape captivity. The rest of the film deals with their physical and psychological recoveries, neither of which go very smoothly.
You're impossible to talk to right now.
Well, sorry.
Well, no, you're not sorry.
Yeah, I'm not sorry.
What I found so captivating about this film was watching the mom try and come up with ways to characterize, firstly, how awful their situation is, and secondly, how the outside world works to someone as uninitiated and plastic as her son.
You're gonna love it.
What? The world.
Number 8, Ex Machina.
What's your favorite color?
Red.
Lie.
Lie?
Yes. Lie.
Then... then what is my favorite color?
I don't know. But it isn't red.
Just a heads up, I'm going to spoil everything there is to spoil about this movie. If you don't want to know whether or not Domhnall Gleeson gets a hold of Oscar Isaac's robot, wait, no, that's Star Wars. Anywho, if you don't want spoilers, feel free to fast forward to... Everybody ready? I knew I liked Ex Machina as soon as I got out of the theater, but it took me weeks to figure out why. There's just so many different interpretations to choose from. Is it a movie about the theoretical limits of technology? About how God might feel about his creations? About our trajectory as a species? Here's the interpretation I think I like the most. Ex Machina is a cautionary tale about the dangers of thinking with your dick, which is something that nice guy Caleb is just as guilty of as corporate asshole Nathan.
Dude.
A lot of people have characterized Nathan as just the most despicable embodiment of the patriarchy,
And I know when that hotline bling.
but I'm not so hard on him. Yes, he's a dick, and his recklessness ultimately puts the whole human race at risk, but I maintain he's not evil simply because he's trying to turn sex toys into realistic-looking women. If he were trying to turn women into realistic-looking sex toys, that would be something different, but he's not. Caleb, by contrast, is guilty of something far more subversive: benevolent sexism. He puts women on pedestals, so much so that the mere simulacrum of a relationship is enough for him to put the entire human race at risk. And do you really think he's not expecting sex from Ava at some point?
So, if you wanted to screw her, mechanically speaking, you could, and she'd enjoy it.
What?
Number 7, The Age of Adaline.
It's just, isn't there some sort of tradition, if you're alone on New Year's Eve, that you're supposed to kiss a stranger? Damn it. You've heard it before.
Just once, from a young Bing Crosby type.
Yes, Age of Adaline. This is not the contrarian pick. It was unequivocally awesome. I will fight you, preferably after I'm over this cold. For those of you who skipped it, Age of Adaline tells the story of Adaline Bowman, a woman who was born in San Francisco in 1908, who made it to the ripe old age of 29 and then stopped aging.
That's right.
You're not supposed to ask why. The filmmakers give us a knowingly nonsensical explanation just to shut us up so that they can get on with the story, but you're really just supposed to accept it at face value, Benjamin Button style. Ultimately, the why doesn't matter, because Adeline's immortality serves as a metaphor for, of all things, the inevitability of death. I know that sounds contradictory, but stick with me and I'll explain it. As Adaline lives her life, everyone around her continues to age.
Happy birthday, Mama.
She's forced to watch as everyone she knows and loves withers and dies. To grow attached to anyone is to commit to the grief that will come from their inevitable demise. This movie was marketed as a romance simply because Adaline has to choose at the end whether or not she's going to date this guy and finally allow someone to know her secret. But what she's really doing here is figuring out how she's going to cope with the inevitable grief that comes with growing attached to someone. That's something that we're all trying to do, us mortal viewers, and that makes this movie valuable. I don't know about you, but making cathartic points about everyday life through the use of extraordinary characters and circumstances is the whole reason I want to make movies. And holy crap, how come this guy isn't in the running to play young Han Solo?
You pop your clutch and you'll take off.
Number 6, It Follows.
Flicker, and I have seen the eternal footman hold my coat and snicker. And in short, I was afraid.
Question: what do you get when you cross the ring with the Terminator? You get this.
Hello? Hello?
Imagine this. There's a mysterious, supernatural being, invisible to everyone but you, who's walking towards you, slowly but inexorably, wherever you are in the world, and if it finally catches you...
Do you guys see that girl right there?
It tears you limb from limb.
Yeah? Yes.
If that weren't trippy enough, turns out there is a way to get the monster to switch targets.
You can get rid of it, okay? Just sleep with someone as soon as you can. Just pass it along. If it kills you, it'll come after me. Do you understand?
This set of circumstances is enough to make It Follows one of the most terrifying and head-trippy horror films of the last decade. But what really raises the bar is that the filmmakers were able to incorporate so many unspoken thoughts about feminism, sex, and the terror of youth.
You could pass it on. I could...
2015 was an extremely good year for horror films. It Follows, Creep, Goodnight Mommy, and The Visit were all fantastic in their own right, and I highly recommend viewings of each one of them. But in the end, It Follows just had the best metaphors. Number 5, Spotlight.
It's time, Robbie! It's time! They knew, and they let it happen! 2 kids! Okay? It could have been you. It could have been me. It could have been any of us.
I've got this pet peeve about films that brag about being based on a true story. If you want me to hold your film in a higher regard by virtue of the fact that it's based on true events, you need to do one of two things for me. You need to either let me know which aspects of the real life story you're embellishing, like they did in Selma or The Big Short, or you do what Spotlight does, and you strip away every trace of embellishment from your film. Spotlight is about the 2002 Boston Globe investigation that exposed the worldwide cover-up of systemic sex abuse within the Catholic Church.
We've got two stories here. A story about degenerate clergy, and a story about a bunch of lawyers turning child abuse into a cottage industry. Which story do you want us to write? Because we're writing one of them.
This movie could have gone after the low-hanging fruit and presented the characters as like these superhuman vigilante crusaders on a mission from God. But ultimately this film is far more reserved and far classier because it's really just a film about a bunch of journalists who are really good at their jobs. The film has not a single instance of grandstanding histrionics, which I think demonstrates a remarkable maturity on the filmmaker's part, especially given the incendiary subject matter.
I was doing my job.
Yeah. You and everyone else.
Number 4, Brooklyn.
I came to the Irish dance because I really like Irish girls.
And I was the only one who would dance with you.
Oh no, it wasn't.
Oh, so you danced with loads of others?
It's kind of hard to pitch Brooklyn. It's not flashy or high concept. It tells the deceptively simple story of an impoverished Irish girl who moves to America to carve out a pleasant little life for herself, complete with an adorably Italian boyfriend who loves her to pieces. But when she's called back to Ireland for what's supposed to be a one-week trip, she soon finds that Ireland is suddenly willing to offer her all the opportunities she had previously found only in America, right down to the adorable suitor.
I don't want you to go. I want you to stay here with me.
Which begs the question, what is home? How do you decide where that is? Is it by access to economic opportunity? By the presence of family and friends? By people who share the same culture and values as you? By access to beaches? Speaking as a witless, transient, economically tenuous millennial, I found myself sparking to this movie perhaps more than any other film in 2015 for purely biographical reasons. My life bears no resemblance whatsoever to the next 3 films on the list. Number 3, Southpaw.
Baby, look at your face.
What are you talking about?
Your face.
Hey, what are you saying? Hey, baby, can I ask you something?
What?
What if I said this? Look at your face. Look at your face. And then I started crying.
Southpaw? Thought I mean Creed? No. It was a fine film, but did the world really need a 7th Rocky film? No, if we're gonna talk about amazing boxing movies that came out in 2015, I'm gonna have to go with Southpaw. I'm not gonna spoil anything that wasn't in the trailer, but if you want to avoid spoilers of any kind, feel free to fast forward to... The secret to Southpaw's brilliance is in its narrative structure. I know that sounds really boring, but I swear to you I'm gonna make this interesting. Superficially, Southpaw might look like just another boxing movie, but when you take a closer look, you'll find that the filmmakers have replicated, of all things, the exact narrative structure of a Pixar film. I'll prove it to you. Let's take a look at Toy Story. In that film, you've got a guy who's got this great life, which is fueled by a great passion. But this passion brings with it pride, a potential source of conflict which is foreshadowed all throughout the first act. Then, a new story element is introduced in the form of a cocky new kid, which the hero misinterprets as a threat to his great passion. Our hero severely overreacts in response to this perceived threat, and does something really, really stupid. As a result, tragedy strikes, and this fantastic life is taken away from him. Not just violently, but humiliatingly, and his life is reduced to shambles. But he's still got his great passion.
Being a toy is a lot better than being a space ranger.
It isn't much, but it's enough to keep going. The rest of the film is spent watching our hero use that passion to rebuild his life, and that search ultimately turns him into a better person. Now let's take a look at Southpaw. In this film, you've got a guy who's got this great life, which is fueled by a great passion. This passion brings with it pride, a potential source of conflict, which is foreshadowed all throughout the first act. And then a new story element is introduced in the form of a cocky new kid, which the hero misinterprets as a threat to his great passion. Our hero severely overreacts in response to this perceived threat, and does something really, really stupid.
Bitch.
As a result, tragedy strikes.
What's wrong? What's wrong?
Yeah,
what's up, baby?
I want to go.
Okay,
I want to go home.
and his fantastic life is taken away from him. Not just violently, but humiliatingly.
Let me just give my daughter a home, man!
And it reduces his life to shambles. But he's still got his great passion. It isn't much, but it's enough to keep going. The rest of the film is spent watching our hero use that passion to rebuild his life, and that search ultimately turns him into a better person.
You stronger than that. They say Billy Hope can't make it. They say Billy Hope is over. You find yourself.
Number 2, Mad Max Fury Road.
What's your name? What do I call you?
Does it matter?
Fine. When I yell fool, you drive out of here as fast as you can.
I imagine the pitch for Fury Road went something like this. Imagine speed, but instead of a big explosion going off when the bus drops below 50 miles per hour, there's just explosions constantly going off. What's not to love about this film? The thrilling plot, the sympathetic characters who don't speak more than a dozen lines throughout the entire film,
My name is Max.
the inventive set pieces, the emphasis on practical stunt work, the carefully hidden, masterfully rendered CGI, the feminist undertones, the feminist overtones, the non-preachy condemnations of violence which are somehow seated unhypocritically right next to thrilling action sequences, the downright infectious world building.
Witness me, bloody!
It's all spectacular, all of it. I honestly have no formal complaints whatsoever. No informal complaints either, now that I think about it. Number 1. At this point in my videos, does anybody ever pause and then go back to the beginning when I show all the posters to see which one I haven't talked about yet, to see what my number 1 pick is? Black Sea.
What? Say again, what?
I found it!
Black Sea is a foreign film with only one American in the cast who plays a sniveling coward, which technically premiered in December of 2014, but was then unceremoniously dumped into American theaters in January of 2015, almost 2 months after its international premiere. If you didn't see this one, don't worry.
It's not your fault.
But you know what? I don't care. This movie is spectacular, and I have no clue why it didn't get wider distribution. Black Sea tells the story of a bunch of blue-collar deep-sea divers who all get sacked despite their slavish lifelong devotion to their company.
I lost my family to this job.
After they're all made redundant, one of the guys says he knows the location of a sunken Nazi U-boat at the bottom of the Black Sea, laden with $182 million of untraceable gold bullion. And so they saddle up for one last dive to salvage the cargo in secret and split the winnings amongst themselves equally.
More share? Jesus Christ, why?
Because they're risking their lives.
Yeah, but they would risk their lives for a flat fee.
Just toss them the scraps, is that it?
Almost immediately, tensions rise to murderous levels, and the worst in each man comes bubbling up to the surface.
What happens when one of them starts to figure out that their share gets bigger, when there is less people?
To say so much with that setup about the human heart's capability of violence is spectacular enough. But then there's the life-threatening logistics and tension from the actual dive. I don't want to give too much away, but this is the kind of film where when the credits roll, you gotta wipe down the sweat off your hands.
This is gonna kill us and you know it. Look, it takes 9 people to sail this thing, right? 9. If we lost someone, we have to go up.
Simply put, Black Sea encompasses everything I love about deep-sea high-tension movies, borrowing a little bit of the best from The Hunt for Red October, U-571, Below, and even Moby Dick, and then it infuses it with this timely little commentary about the recession.
They think we're dirt, we are not dirt. They think they can tell us.
Hey, who is the Fae? Who is they?
I'm thinking we rent it in waves, so that Netflix's supply isn't deleted instantaneously. I say the East Coast gets it first, and then we wait like 4 business days, and then everyone in Central Time adds it to their queue, and so on and so forth.